What if I gave you the best diet for you personally for free? One that actually gets you shredding off the belly and love handles and building a lean and jacked physique. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to reveal in this video. And it's the exact same thing that I use with my own one-to-one clients to take them from skinny fat to lean and jacked. So let's get into it. Right, so you've probably been there before. You're trying to clean up the diet, training hard, eating less. You're still struggling to shift that belly fat, the love handles, the man boobs, cutting out the carbs, skipping the takeaways, forcing down bland, boring meals from some other fitness plan. And a few weeks in, you still feel flat, soft, small. You're just more hungry and more annoyed. Thinking to yourself maybe like, fuck it, shall I just start bulking up? And that is the skinny fat trap. We don't want to be there, no. Most guys in this position, they just end up doing what every shredded influencer seems to tell them to do. Follow a perfect 6-day meal plan. Cut out the carbs. Live a bodybuilder lifestyle of chicken and fucking broccoli. Or some generic 1800 calorie PDF that they downloaded with meals that they've never made before because some ripped influencer on Instagram who looks good tells you that that's what you need to eat. So what happens? You last a few days, maybe a few weeks if you're lucky, and then you give up. Here's the problem with all that shit. It's perfect in the theoretical world, but not in your real world. Reality is, you don't need a perfect meal plan. You don't need to eat super clean or cut out the carbs or anything like that. You definitely don't need some 20-year-old influencer off Instagram's perfect little diet plan for him who's got all the time in the world and lives and breathes fitness. Because the best diet to get lean and jacked for you is ultimately the one you're already on, just tweaked a little bit. And what you need to do is apply something that I like to call the automatic diet method. It's exactly what I'm going to take you through right now. Okay, so it's important to remember that everybody has their go-to habits when starting a new diet. Things that have been ingrained in you already. Certain things that you cut out, certain things that you bring in, certain meals and foods that you automatically tend to start making and building into your plan as soon as you start a diet again. So therefore, it's worth considering and remembering these changes require the least amount of resistance for you to get going on. Chances are your instincts aren't actually too far off where you need to be. What we need to do is align your instincts with the metrics that is going to determine you getting lean and jacked. So, step 1/week 1, track fucking everything. Every single thing that goes through your mouth from Monday to Sunday. We need to log it as accurately, honestly, and as vigilantly as you can on something like MyFitnessPal. Because we need it out in front of us to see what the patterns are, the calories, the protein. If you have something a little bit bad, you still got to track it. We got to see what that looks like from a metrics point of view. So not only do we need to track everything that we're shoving in, we also need to track what we're putting out. So we need to track our activity levels as well. So there's 2 things we need to monitor. Total hours of exercise in your week. That isn't walking, so it's like cardio, sport, gym sessions obviously, and your daily average step count. This one's really important. If you've got a phone in your pocket 80-90% of the time, those inbuilt pedometers are pretty damn accurate, so you can use that, or you can use some sort of fitness watch device, Fitbit, Apple Watch, Galaxy smartwatch, whatever. Once we have all that data in front of us for a solid week or so, we can move on to step 2. Step 2 is calculating your shred targets. The thing is, most TDE calculators, or calorie calculators as you might know them off Google and things, they fuck up because they don't put your step count into the equation, which is quite retarded to be honest with you, because if you're going to the gym 3 days a week but person number 1 smashes 10,000 steps a day compared to person number 2 who sits on his ass and barely does 500, obviously person number 1 is going to burn more calories. Because you're both working out 3 times a week, according to those calculators you both have the same activity level, which is fucking stupid because you don't. Anyway, my one does. You can grab this in the links below where I'm leaving the calorie calculator as well as this whole method download for you and other free shit that you can get your hands on. So we calculate based on our activity metrics what your calorie target range should be. With that calculation you've got your range for you to maintain, but you've also got the range you need to be in to shred up between half a kilo to a kilo a week. And what I would do is pick a realistic target based on what you've already been tracking the week before, somewhere between these 2 numbers. That's your calorie target sorted. You pick an exact calorie target based on what you're tracking in, but based on the calculation, and then you give yourself a little bit of a range around that to be in. Second thing we need to do, we also need to know our protein requirement, because we want to make sure that the weight that we are dropping is the right kind of weight, is body fat, and we're able to maintain or even build some muscle during this shred phase process. 2 very simple options that you can do to calculate this, all right? You can either times your current body weight by about 1.6 in kilos, or your lean target body weight, if you have a rough idea of how much you need to lose, by 2, double it. For example, if you weigh 85 kilos and you know you've probably got about 10 kilos to drop to get lean, that'll be 75 times 2, 150. So you've got your calorie and protein targets based on your tracking, based on your metrics. You've also got an entire week's plus worth of tracking data, your meal habits, your meal numbers, what that currently looks like. And that brings us on to step 3, which is tweak to fit. Notice I said tweak. It's not some grand fucking massive change. It is small little adjustments. All you need to do is look at what your calories and protein have been across each day in your first week. Compare that with your target calorie and protein ranges that you need to be in, and make the adjustments necessary so that they fit. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but doing it this way, it's way fucking easier than a brand new meal plan which you ain't ever gonna stick to. Typically, what I'll find with most guys during their week 1 tracking is that their calories aren't too far off where they need to be, because you've already entered that like diet mode. So if anything, to be honest with you, it's probably a little bit too low during the week. If you find that your tracked calories is significantly under the target calories that we need to be in, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but also it could be why you're struggling to stick with that diet. If your calories are too low, yeah, your weight's going to shred off faster, but how are you going to be able to stick to it? You're going to be fucking starving, and it's just a ticking time bomb before you go, fuck this, I give up. So you may need to bring your calories up slightly during the week. Chances are, if you're actually honest with yourself, those weekend calories, if you track them properly, might have been a little bit too high. And if you've got the data in front of you, you can look at the things that are ultimately causing your calories to blow up too much and make some compromises. Second thing we typically see is that your protein is not high enough. You might be having your precious little morning or post-workout protein shake, but overall across the whole day, it's just not enough to contribute. Your meals that need that protein boost, you don't need to add more supplements or more shakes or more powders. You need to look at the actual food that you're having for your lunch, dinners, breakfast. So that is the first thing that I would look at when adjusting your meals, looking at your protein in each meal. Which brings me on to the final step of this process, using the meal breakdown method. So breaking it down into individual meal targets makes it way easier to make these overall adjustments. So if you've got your whole daily calorie and protein target, sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming to hit that every single day. But if you look at your individual meals, if you break it down meal by meal, it makes it a little bit easier to follow. So look at your week's tracking. What is the pattern? Do you have like a small breakfast, medium-sized lunch, and a big dinner, and then maybe like a little snack in between? So instead of just hoping and praying you're going to get enough protein by the end of the day, give yourself minimum targets per meal or snack during the day. For example, like 30 grams of protein for breakfast, loading up for breakfast, 40 grams for lunch, 20 gram protein snack, quite easy, and a little protein bars and stuff like that, and then a good like 50-60 grams of protein for dinner when you've got the biggest portion. So you give yourself a minimum protein target per meal, and then you give yourself a calorie limit per meal as well. So your overall daily target, break that up into individual limits per meal. So maybe your limit for dinner might be 1,000 calories and your limit for breakfast might be like 400, for example. Make it add up to that range that we need to be in, like maybe the middle upper end of it. Breaking it down into the individual meal targets helps you make those little adjustments a lot easier, because you can look at your existing breakfast and then you can see, oh, I just need to add a little bit more of this, or I need to remove a little bit of this, or what big protein source can I bring into my lunch that is going to be easy for me to prepare or bring into my workspace, for example. It gives you much more specific direction and things to aim for. Before you know it, your go-to diet in week 1 is now comfortably fitting inside your calorie and protein targets to get you lean and jacked. And that there is the automatic diet. Is it perfect? No. Is it going to be optimal for macros, micronutrients, health? Long term? Not necessarily. But we can look to make things a little bit more optimal, a little bit more perfect, a little bit more health orientated as the weeks and months go on. Once you've got your metrics down and you're consistent on these numbers and seeing weekly progress and the weight shredding up every single week. Now you just want something that is quick, simple, easy and consistent, and that is what this method does. Right, I hope you found this useful. If you want my free training, which includes both this automatic diet and my 2-set shred workout program, so that you're absolutely smashing not only your nutrition, but your workouts from the get-go, link below. But if you're interested in the entire 4-phase system that I take my own clients through to get them from skinny fat to lean and jacked, you're gonna wanna watch this video somewhere around here. It is my full deep dive video taking you step by step through the entire coaching process. Free program, full process, one of them, both of them. Chat to you later.